Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Maintaining Work-Life Balance While Working from Home. My name is Anya Ren, and I'm the Manager for Market Support and Program at BCCIE. Our presenter today is Christina Furtado from Toronto. She's a mental health and wellness specialist with keep.meSAFE program by GuardMe. And before we get started, we would like to acknowledge that at BCCIE, we live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast-Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Some quick info about our audience today. We have people joined from both the public and private sectors, a few colleagues from colleges and universities, as well as from education associations. Welcome, everyone. Some housekeeping information. As you can see here, we will be having a Q&A session at the end, but throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to type your question into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll bring them up throughout the webinar and during the Q&A session at the end. If you want to ask questions live during the actual presentation, please raise your hand to request for the mic, and we'll unmute you. The presentation and handout can be downloaded from the control panel. There should be two PDF documents for you to save. We will be sharing the recording as well on BCCIE's website, so please make sure you go back and check. Please also use the question chat box to request any technical assistance if you need any. Now, without further ado, I will turn the time over to Christina. Christina, thank you so much again for joining us from Toronto.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my home. It's nothing to brag about, but it's mine. And thank you so much for allowing me into your home. The purpose of today's webinar is really identifying your mental wellness support, what you can do to keep your anxiety and stress levels a little bit more manageable so you can continue on with doing what you need to do in better supporting not only your student body, but the schools and institutions and associations that you are affiliated with, as well as your family and friend responsibilities. So when we're looking at and talking about sort of that mental wellness balance that we all strive to achieve, and what frankly, as a result of COVID, has been completely disrupted, is identifying that just like physical health falls along a continuum and we never maintain a very specific state of being, our mental wellness is exactly the same. It falls along a continuum. I've included there sort of a little meter image to identify and really highlight the various areas that our mental wellness does travel through, dependent on situations, depending on interactions, and really even dependent on our perception of that particular event. So we can see that there's, a dark green color and it sort of transitions into the red color. Traditionally, with normal levels of stress and anxiety, we tend to hover within that light green area, and that's thriving. That's a healthy state of being, and that sort of identifies itself to be normal mood fluctuations, in control with regards to your thoughts, few sleeping disturbances, and frankly, being able to take things in stride. So when there are variables that do cross our paths that fall outside of our concern, we can, within this healthy state, come up with solutions and problem-solving strategies to help either avoid that particular obstacle or work around it. And we do that on a day-to-day basis with decisions that we have to make. We have to be creative in how to get individuals into our schools, into our classrooms. That's your job. And you've been very good at it. With everything that's happened as a result of COVID-19, those coping mechanisms and those stress levels have really been thrown off, have been really increased and escalated to levels that are not familiar to most of us. So we have now transitioned to an unsettled and even struggling area of our mental wellness spectrum, which is that yellow and orange. And when we find ourselves in that position, what we need to also do is appreciate that other individuals across the world have also been impacted in the same way to this disruption. It's unprecedented. It's very unique. And frankly, we didn't really see it coming to the degree that it did. So when you don't have the means of preparing in order to protect, we find ourselves in what we are right now, which is this state of uncertainty, this state of uncomfortability, and very high levels of stress and anxiety. That's not to say that we have to stay there. And part of what we want to sort of look at as a foundation in order to establish an understanding before moving forward to some of those tips that not only you can apply to yourself, but you can also help others apply it to their daily lives, is what is stress? And frankly, we'll also look at what is anxiety. If we can actually name it, we are better equipped to manage it. And when we're looking at stress, stress is the overall sort of concept and idea. And though the reason behind it is something very specific, and that is what we need to identify, and that is what we need others to identify in order for us to support them. So stress is a person's total response to environmental demands or pressures that disrupt one's equilibrium, one's balance. So day-to-day activities that do challenge that. So enrollment's low. It falls on you guys to sort of up the ante in enrollment and getting people in. That's causing disruption to the balance of the environment of the institution. It doesn't mean that it's not manageable. It just means that different actions of precaution need to be taken into place. When we're experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety as a result of uncertainty, which is really where we are all sitting in right now due to the unique situation and disruption of COVID, stress is fear. It is our body's warning alarm telling us to act with precaution, and it's precaution against a perceived loss. So fear of not meeting expectations that you've set for yourself based on what was your normal before COVID-19. So what you were familiar with as to not only your role professionally, but your role personally. So fear of not meeting those expectations. Fear of not meeting the expectations of others, whether it be colleagues, family members, employers, families. It is fear that has caused everyone's stress levels to increase to a point that has been intensified to where we can't see what's coming next. So one of the most helpful things that we can do during times of stress is take an inventory, then attempt to change the situation for the better. But we first again have to understand what is fueling the intensity behind this feeling. And that is the anxiety level that we have. Anxiety is a normal part of one's experience. We experience it on day-to-day life challenges that we come across. And when we look at anxiety in this concept, it is a feeling of fear, worry, or uneasy. And it's a reaction to stress, identified or unidentified. So what we need to achieve in order to better manage that level of stress is to boost our coping mechanisms and also to help others identify as well what needs to happen in order for that positive move forward. There are 4 different ways that we can really tackle stress on a day-to-day basis that may not necessarily be applicable to us in this current circumstance. And those 4 A's are avoid. So we can't necessarily avoid COVID-19, and though we can plan ahead. We can rearrange our surroundings and actually look at this as opportunities to change dynamics, change how we do things, change what we're comfortable with and what we're familiar with to something that is new, that's something that is exciting, that something is creative. We can alter. So that is looking at, what are the most helpful things that you can do, that you can take away from that inventory and attempt to change the situation for the better. There's then acceptance and even adapting. So we need to really first identify that in our normal levels of stress management, what is that experience for us? We can identify that it's very normal for all of us to have different feelings based on very similar circumstances. It generates certain thoughts, and those thoughts are very unique to us. It's based on our perception of the situation. Those thoughts create very specific feelings, and those feelings become our truth. They become and sort of feed that reality. And they create very specific behaviors. Now, this automatic pilot can go one of two ways. It can go literally automatic to where that thought is had and you just automatically react through a behavior. Or what we're trying to achieve, and what I'm going to encourage us to sort of plant the seed of part of the process of shifting our mindset during this time, is allowing ourselves to identify what that thought is, but more specifically, identify what the true and genuine feeling is to that thought, to that situation. So our behavior can actually be more responsive versus reactive. And what we are finding right now, and what we did find a couple weeks ago when COVID really hit home, when it was across the waters, we knew that there was going to be an impact. What we didn't identify and didn't appreciate at the time, and kind of we were in denial of, was how significant of an impact it was going to have on us. So when it was and had arrived, we noticed, and still are, frankly, individuals in state of panic, that their behavior is reactive. Hoarding toilet paper, hoarding all this food and necessities and not really appreciating and being empathetic to everyone is going through this. We are all experiencing it in various ways, and we need to find a way to come together in a unified approach to overcome it. So it's just a matter of what our role is and how we can sort of stop our automatic pilot, regain control back from our thoughts, and not allow our thoughts to control us. With that said, we also need to appreciate that fear and that stress in very high levels of situations, as we are experiencing now, have a purpose. So once we accept it and recognize it, it serves to alert us to take action to protect ourselves from a possible loss. And again, that loss can have many different meanings in many different aspects of your life. As a result of COVID-19, what we have experienced is a collide of two separate worlds that we've been accustomed to having a very clear defining line between: our work life and our personal life. And now we've literally smushed them all under one roof and wear different hats, different responsibilities with different expectations, and expected to be okay with it. Just like you are not okay with the transition and the disruption that COVID-19 has placed on our laps, neither is anyone else that you have come into contact with. So we need to appreciate that everyone's automatic pilot is different and unique to them. And part of our role is identifying and accepting that that is what it is. So one thing that we need to sort of look at, and it helps us to get to the point of acceptance, and that is finding and identifying the relationship between the stages of stress that we might have been experiencing now and that stages of stress that others are experiencing to a grieving cycle. Grief is a normal internal feeling when one experiences in reaction to a loss. So right now we feel the world has changed. Well, it has. We know that this is temporary, but it still doesn't feel that way. And we do realize that things will be different. So there's the loss of normalcy, of what was familiar. There's the fear of economic toll, the fear of job security, the fear of financial security, the loss of connection. This is hitting us, and we're grieving collectively. We're not used to a collective grief in the air. It's sort of situational. And though we've now all been placed on the same playing field, if you will, we're feeling that there's a loss of safety. So with those stages of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, we've gone through and will continue to go through that cycle through our stages of stress. But more importantly, I'm highlighting this for you, not only for your own mental wellness, but also for your interactions and dealings with other individuals as well. Other countries, other provinces are experiencing this to different degrees. And yet, we've all had the same impact. Personal life, work life, collision. Not something we're equipped to deal with. So how do we do that? Well, I encourage us to sort of look at it from this perspective. Every day, in both our personal and professional lives, we face challenges. We face decisions and situations that cause our stress levels to escalate. You need to meet targets with regards to enrollment. That's a stressor. And though you experience it on a day-to-day basis in your professional life. There's situations in your personal life where you have to manage expectations or, okay, I've got to take the missus out for dinner and try to put work aside and be able to focus on my responsibilities in the home. We all have that. And now, right now, the most crucial skill that we all need to gain is the ability to step back and try to view what is happening right now from a different perspective. When we carry on that negative viewpoint, when we carry on those significant and heavy worries that frankly are out of our control and really keep us in a point of uncertainty, it weighs us down. It drains us mentally. We're not able to think rationally because we don't see the way out. And that is based on our perception. So even though we've all been hit with COVID-19 disruptions, our personal experiences are different, and that influences our perception. Same event, different view. So perceptions are influenced by a number of factors. They're influenced by our experience, our personal values, our judgments, information, as well as lack of information. Our perceptions are also influenced by our needs and our desires. Perception is our reality. But again, it's the reality in which we see it through our lens. Is it possible to expand that perception of situations? Yes. Is it possible to change our perspective? Yes. And that will change the reality. So how do we do that? Well, it's called tricking the mind and flipping the script. So simple trick because we've all got the power to do that. That automatic pilot that we have, it starts from our thoughts. Where we are right now in not seeing a way out, in not seeing the creativity of opportunities that COVID-19 can actually provide us and present to us is because our brains are really wired to look for the negative. It's just how we're made. Our existence has relied on us seeing all the dangers around us. So when we flip the script and we try to see the positive in things, then it's easier to actually plan and put together an action plan of success moving forward. And that's the key. We need to all hold on to that idea of this is temporary and let's look at this as an opportunity of growth, an opportunity of revisiting best practices, new practices, and really taking the opportunity to be creative in achieving what we need to achieve. So we are all in this together. And though we are improvising as we go, because there's new information that we are getting on a daily basis, there's new variables that we need to consider. And though we can adapt and we can overcome, it is in this moment that we are not only faced with recalibrating and identifying new ways of working, but we're focused on increasing that ongoing needs in real time to not only create solutions for ourselves, but we can create solutions for our students, whomever they will be, current and future. And all it takes is a starting point of not only shaping an empathetic pathway towards all of those impacted by this disruption to our individual routines, but it's also looking at our own perceptions and how we can shift that. So with that said, I'd like us to do a very quick check-in, and it's sort of an interactive check-in for those that are willing to participate. And it's called the Rose check-in. So this is, again, a very simple technique that really will ground us into changing the perception of, I don't have solutions here. I have a certain job that I am accustomed to doing in a very certain way, and I can't see myself doing it in any other way. So I've lost opportunities. I'm losing opportunities. When really we need to identify there are other opportunities that we're just not seeing because we are in that negative and sort of comfortable headspace of what things were and not towards how things are now. So the rose check-in is identifying either a rose during this particular disruption, and that's identifying that as a result of the disruption, can you identify something that is going well? Maybe for you, you've identified a rosebud that has happened as a result of this particular disruption, and that could be an opportunity. Or maybe you've identified a thorn, and that's a challenge. Or frankly, you're just unsure. So to give you an idea of this exercise, I myself will start. So I am going to identify that I'm going to identify two things that the COVID-19 situation has impacted me and has sort of caused. So first is the rosebud, and that's an opportunity. So as I was introduced, I'm a mental health and wellness specialist. I'm a mental health counselor by profession, and I've joined the keep.meSAFE team in a different capacity initially. Now my role is different. So the opportunity that it presented not only was for me for personal growth and professional growth, however, it's provided me the opportunity to be able to plant a seed in more individuals through the capacity of webinars than I would have previously. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to just even plant one seed. The thorn, which is the challenge, was that I was on mandatory quarantine for 14 days and I live alone. So the challenge was trying to navigate my support system and identify who that was, because who I thought it was and who it actually turned out to be was very different. So that was a challenge for me. So I'm going to open up the floor to individuals that would like to share what their rosebud, thorn, or unsure was. So if you want to participate in that and share, use your little hand, and we will unmute you to share what your rose check-in would be. But I know that Ian is someone that would like to share her rose check-in before we open the floor to you guys.
Hi, Christina. Sure, I can go ahead and share. Rosebud, an opportunity, I think, for me is to spend more time with family and my partner, because we don't get to see each other often. And also, we discovered virtual online dancing. So that's something that we've never done together. Yeah, it's a great time to bond, to exercise at the same time. So that's my rosebud. Thorn, a challenge. I think I'm very active. I like to go for a run in the park or go for a hike, because we're in practicing social distancing, physical distancing. So that has been a challenge into, not being able to be in the nature as much as I wanted.
Yeah.
So instead, I just do more exercise at home.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's my few cents.
Thank you. Now, does anybody else in the room want to share their Rose check-in? Or else I can unmute you myself. So I do see some people in the room that I actually know. So Sean, I've unmuted you. Hi, my dear. You're going to hate me for this, I know. So what would your Rose check-in be?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes. So can everybody else.
Okay. Wonderful. Probably my Rose check-in would be the rosebud for me has definitely been the opportunity to be at home. Unfortunately, I'm on my last day of quarantine, so being at home with a significant other and getting to just be together more often has been great instead of all the travels. The challenge has definitely been the ability to not interact with my coworkers and kind of have those daily discussions, and the workflow is definitely being implemented or being hindered because of not being able.
So it seems like we lost you, Sean, for that last little bit with regards to not being able to connect with coworkers. So I'm going to mute you back. And again, that is a very common experience that a lot of us are happening that we actually take for granted when we do have colleagues that we have face-to-face conversations with and we sort of bounce ideas off of. And that can definitely be one of the most significant challenges that we are all experiencing. And there's ways to be creative around that. So is there someone else in the room before we move on that wishes to share their Rose check-in? No? No problem. So we do encourage you to, try this on a daily basis when you notice that you're caught up in the cycle of uncertainty and that cycle of that negative thought process, because we really want to try to identify a more positive perception, because that allows us to have access not only cognitively to the areas of problem solving and strategizing, but allows us to have and maintain better interpersonal relationships. So one of the things that will make our transition sort of from work-home life balance is to take care of ourselves. And that sometimes is foreign to a lot of us. And we're very used to and accustomed to a very specific routine and rhythm that doesn't always look at ourselves as priority of care. And yes, we can say we eat healthy. And yes, we can say we stay active and we go to the gym or we do yoga. And all of those things are important and critical to our overall health. But it doesn't really be specific to treating ourselves as if we were an expensive car and regularly servicing us and just taking care of oneself. And that is another reason why, with such a collide, it makes it difficult for us to problem solve and come up with strategies, because we're not familiar with this platform. There's too many variables that we just didn't have an idea, nor did we have a solution for, and now it's being thrown in our lap to have to manage. So some suggestions and tips, choose a dedicated workspace. So if you are like me and you don't have a very large residence, finding a dedicated workspace is really identifying a space within your home that your stuff can be planted towards and not moved. And, for some of us where it might be the dining room table, and then you sort of set yourself up at the dining room table, and then you sort of take things down before dinner time, and then you set things back up the next day to do some more work. What you want is to have a static work space that is dedicated within your home, and it stays dedicated until this isolation period is over. When you have a chaotic home, it does lead to a chaotic mind. So once we can tidy up some of the home routine and navigate our way through that, we can actually really be quite effective and productive within our work responsibilities. So that's something key. I'm not going to talk to a great length to all of these points. You can read through them on your own. What I will highlight, though, are specific ones that I think are important. So I've highlighted the dedicated workspace. I encourage you to plan out what you're going to be working on ahead of time. What does your day actually look like? And structure that in. Structure in lunch, structure in family time, structure in breaks, structure in your physical activity. Put together a routine that you follow, and that includes a start and a definitive finish time. We find ourselves at a point where we need to be more forgiving in the fact that we're human. And yes, we have jobs to do, and though our jobs do not identify or define who we are, and we've all been impacted by the disruption of COVID-19, we all run the risk of not knowing and having the uncertainty of our finances, of our jobs down the road because of the industries that we've chosen for our profession. That's a reality. That's a fear. That's valid. And though we also have responsibilities in our home, in our personal lives. When you are found with a circumstance, which we all are now, different people in the home that also have routines that have been disrupted, and that could be children, that can be partners, that could be friends. If we are all moving forward with the sole intention of our own routines and structures in order to get back on track, and we lose sight of collaborating with the other individuals in the home of what that looks like, what ends up happening is we don't meet expectations. And what that is fueling the fear. So communicate expectations with anyone who will be in your home. If you have young children that you're trying to parent at the same time, that frankly their attention span is so small, or maybe your partner's attention span is narrow as well, and they can't really grab their attention for too long, put together a routine and schedule that changes on a daily basis to where there is 10 minutes of uninterrupted work time. You dedicate your time to answering emails. You dedicate times to talking with colleagues. Anything that comes outside of that 10-minute window, you do not answer till the next 10-minute window of your uninterrupted work time. When you have young children, that 10 minutes is a window of time that they are able to sustain their attention in a meaningful activity. So I'm not necessarily saying a TV show, and though you can use that, but give them homework so they have the value and they understand the value of when I have this in front of me, I need to dedicate my time to this. If they can sustain that 10 minutes without any interruption, the next day you increase it by 5. If they can do that, the next day you increase it by 20. And by the end of the week, if not sooner, you will have a large increment of 30-minute blocks of time to be able to get things done and slowly build up to that. You have to get your work, your home balance, your home life balanced and in a different routine to the new norm in order to effectively do your job from home. So you want to set clear expectations. And the one thing as well is important to say when we're on this screen is your expectations shape your reality. They are part of the factors that contribute to the perception of the situation. So this is important when it comes to dealing with employers, expectations for them, expectations from families, expectations from students. You can't expect a similar performance. And it's difficult to let go of the idea that expecting something to happen in the way that it used to will make it happen in the new normal. We can't do that. It's just not realistic, and it's not where we're at right now. So we need to recalibrate expectations. Stay within the parameters and the routines of your current situations and really just be open to feedback. Have other people's intentions and needs be expressed and see how that can be fit in. We all need to understand the why behind new expectations being set. It will actually increase individuals' accountability for meeting specific expectations. Help people actually understand the bigger picture, and you will gain support. You will also gain the clarity of being able to establish a new and more creative routine. It is also in the lack of clearly understood expectations that contribute to conflict within relationships. And when we're talking about relationships, we're not only talking about romantic relationships and familiar relationships, we're really talking about any interpersonal relationship. And it is the beginning of poor organizational performance. So if we think about that concern with losing that feedback or those sounding boards with colleagues and not having that in-person communication with them, it is the loss of that expectation and what that relationship dynamic was. It doesn't change the role of that relationship. It just changes how that relationship is actually playing out. Lack of boundaries, or really not maintaining healthy boundaries, can also be a contributing factor to negatively impacting relationships. So this is where, again, it's important to look at what are boundaries so we can better understand them. So when we are establishing new routines and new expectations, not only for ourselves, but for others and what they may have for us, we need to really have an appreciation for what that actually means. And what I'd like to highlight on this list that really sort of sets things aside are two particular points. The second on the list, separation of where you end and another begins, or where you begin and another ends. So quite often, and I've said this before, I've identified myself as a person to my job and what I've been able to accomplish in that status. And when I have previously been in a situation where I have lost my job, whether I did leave, and though it was a new experience for me, I had to redefine who I saw myself to be. And part of that is, again, where expectations were put on me to achieve certain things. And then I found myself in a situation outside of my control where I could not fulfill those expectations. So ensuring that those boundaries were established, and really that last point as well, clearly defining limits. So you are free to be yourself. You are who you are. You are not identified and you are not equated to the role that you have within the organizations that you work with or within the families that you work with as well. With no restrictions placed by you on others or others on you as to how to act, feel, or think. I know, and some feedback that I've gotten from other individuals from other webinars is pressures from the powers that be within organizations to do that sales and get that interest going. And we have to, this is about finances and it's about stability and it's about your job. That's their fears of the uncertainty as well. And they're trying to figure their shit out, pardon me. They're trying to figure their stuff out and expecting you to do the same. But what we need to all have an appreciation for is that we're all afraid of the change. That's natural. And we need to overcome that hesitation and really face that fear and what that fear actually is. And when we face that fear, and that fear tends to be going from what's familiar to what's unfamiliar, it's, people's stability and comfortability that's been thrown off kilter. It's breaks in routine. It's challenging our identities and our self-esteem. There's all of these different things, including our security of unpredictable events. So we need to take a step forward into the unknown and actually be flexible enough and courageous enough to leave the familiar routine and try something new. So you should improve your chances of success through sound planning, preparation, and be creative. Change means giving something up. We know that. Letting go in order to move forward. Letting go can be difficult. And when we let go of what we've been so good at doing with regards to, again, that familiar routine, the familiar way of getting students to come to Canada for education, all of these different ways that we've been so accustomed and so successful in doing, we're losing because that has become our sense of self. We've allowed it to. It doesn't mean that it is. It's all in our perception. So letting go is the biggest block for any career change that any of us may face. And part of that all boils down to allowing something that is out of our control to control us. So simple tips to boost your overall well-being. Know your limits. Really establish those expectations and boundaries. Pay attention to your stress levels. Pay attention to your coping mechanisms. Limit your consumption of the news, but stay informed because that also allows you to be current on also being creative in how to market what you need to market in a different way. And some of it might be virtually. So that's using technology as a means of staying connected. And that could be staying connected with family or friends, staying connected with colleagues, staying connected with just overall populations and agents from across the world. It's maintaining healthy relationships and building a strong support system. That is what we all need right now, is a strong support system, because we're all in this together. We're all experiencing the same thing. So there is this, our viewpoints and our perceptions can actually be about moving forward and not looking behind. With that said, specific things can change, and that's what we need to focus on. Things can change rather than circumstances beyond your control. So what are those things? Well, we can stay positive. We can control how we respond. It is our life, and we have the power within us to change it. We may be afraid as to what's to come, and though we need to take control and we need to act. We need to be proactive instead of reactive. So trust that everything will be okay no matter what. It's a matter of what it is, will be, and we just need to trust that we are putting our best foot forward in a positive way to achieve an outcome that we feel comfortable with. So plan for what you can. So if you are like me, I'm an overthinker. I'm a planner. I have plans A, B, C, D with options and strategies and solutions for all options and variables that I have potentially come up with. Can I say that that's healthy? It depends. It's a little obsessive. So what I'm suggesting is what we want to do is write down the specific worries that you have about how the virus may or has disrupted your life. And you can do it in 2 buckets, your professional life as well as your personal life. Make a list of all the possible solutions you can think of for each of those worries. And then draw up a plan of action. So what steps do you need to put into place in order to achieve that final outcome that you're hoping for? Do not get hung up on the perfect solution or the perfect option. When all of that's done, set it aside and go back to it when you need it or until circumstances significantly change. It's also important that in addition to taking care of ourselves as part of our routine, that we really look at it as intentional self-care. So this is where you set the intention, you actually plan it out and make sure that part of your day is about taking care of your body and taking care of your mind. And there's many different ways of doing that. I've provided you a few here with regards to different tips to keep in mind. One of the handouts is what is called the mental health self-care wheel. So it really looks at different strategies and different tips as to self-care activities that will engage different aspects of us as humans. Now, the whole purpose of today was, again, to equip you with various strategies and tips and tools so you can be best equipped in managing your mental wellness during this disruption with its peaks and valleys in order for you to also better manage and maintain a balanced state of being between your work life and your home life, now that it's all under one roof and will be under one roof for some time. it doesn't mean that this is it. This is temporary, and we can actually use this as opportunity to see things in a different way, an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to be challenged, an opportunity to be creative. Think outside the box and actually set yourself aside within the market, because you have the luxury to do that right now. What do you want to achieve? What image do you want to put out there? What vision do you have? And is this the opportunity that will provide you the chance to really push it out there? I've encouraged you to stay with accurate information with regards to COVID-19. Here are various websites that you can look at that will have the most recent and accurate information on the virus itself and the spread of it, including some local provincial health agencies with regards to steps that they may have as well. Other important information and available support is with regards to your own mental well-being, or even areas that you can recommend to others that might be in need of support and just don't feel comfortable or not have the knowledge as to what is available. So local hotlines and distress centers are accessible 24/7. I've included here 3 apps that look at anxiety management, which again is the stress responder, as well as general mental health. They are free. Out of those apps, I would strongly recommend and endorse SAM as an app, given its simplicity and effective tools. There's the body scan meditation. If you're concerned or someone else is concerned with regards to symptoms of COVID-19, there is the BC support app and assessment tool, as well as Maple has a free assessment as well. When addressing and wanting support within mental health in general and needing to speak to someone specifically with regards to how you're feeling or how someone else is feeling, check with your employers with regards to an employee and family assistance program, so an EFAP program that might be available to you. For your students, there is the Keep Me Safe by GuardMe mental wellness student support program. It is 24 hours clinical support that is accessible to eligible students. And when we say eligible, those are students that are from schools that already have Keep Me Safe program or the MySSP program. If your school does not, or you don't know if they do send us a quick email at inquiries@keepmesafe.org, and we'll be happy to provide you the information on what the student support program is or whether or not your students have access to that. So some change is needed during this unique time. It is clear to us that collectively, the efforts of provinces, territories, education associations, and institutions, as well as each one of us individually, can put Canada's educational system back on the path of moving forward and looking forward to new opportunities. It is this perspective shift. It's how we view things that we want our reality to be. So try this perspective shift. Instead of seeing social distancing and travel bans as panic, try seeing them as acts of mass cooperation intended to protect the collective whole. This plan is not about individuals going into hiding. It's a global deep breath, an agreement between humans around the planet to be still. Be still in hopes that the biggest wave can pass without engulfing too many of the vulnerable among us. We are in this together. We are not alone. We just have to work together. So thank you so much for joining us. If you are interested in other opportunities and other webinars for your colleagues, for your students, do send me an email at christina@keepmesafe.org. We will also be hosting several different webinars, not only for staff and students, on various topics that are at the forefront of what we're experiencing today. So do keep your eyes open for that. But what I'd like to do is open the floor to any questions that individuals in the room might have specific to their own experiences, or in addition to things that we might have talked about during the course of our time together. So you can
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just a reminder for people who joined later, at a later time, if you are wondering if you can get a copy of the presentation, Christine actually posted the 2 handouts for you to save or share with your coworkers or students. You can download it yourself on your control panel. It's under the handouts, so there are 2 PDF for you to save. And also, we will be sharing the recording on our BCCIE website for you to review later as well. So we'll give a few minutes for questions. Make sure you either use the question and chat box to type them out, or you can raise your hand. We can unmute you.
So something that was brought up earlier that I was just sort of thinking about, and it's something that we had suggested even amongst our colleagues, and I have done it with my friends and family, and that's sort of pub night. Not that I'm encouraging alcohol or substances, because I'm telling you to avoid that as a mechanism. And though it's an opportunity where, again, just being creative in how to gain what we're striving for and what we desire for is just social connection. It's not social proximity. It's about connection. And while proximity does add value to the relationship and does add to the experience, it's not something that we actually need when looking at social connectivity. That's what we need, is the connection. So look at opportunities to be creative, set time aside. If there's particular colleagues that you used to have coffee breaks with, put that into your routine. So 10 o'clock, in the morning, I'm going to have my coffee date with Tara, a colleague of mine, through Teams. And we're going to sit there and have our little cup of coffee and cheers each other and just talk about how our days are going and just shows that we're watching. And we just try to not allow COVID-19 to hijack our conversation every single time. It's about balance, and it's about changing our perceptions of the situation so we can actually remain healthy and positive for however long this is going to be.
Thanks so much for sharing, Christina. I'm so glad you shared that idea. We actually at BCCIE, we started something last week called Virtual Pub. Again, it's not involved not necessarily with the drinks or anything. It's more like a social gathering time through virtual meeting rooms, and people share recent movies you've watched or books you're reading that you highly recommended, just like you're having a water cooler talk when you're in the office. So it's absolutely a great idea to, stay connected with your coworkers. So yeah, that's what we are doing. And then we're going to do it again tomorrow on Friday.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm mindful for time, and there doesn't seem to be questions, which is fine. And if there is questions that do arise once our time is done, please don't hesitate to, again, send them through BCCIE or send me an email directly at Christina@keep.meSAFE.org, and we will be happy to address any of those questions that may arise. But for now, I will wish you all just stay safe, stay healthy, stay motivated, stay positive, and don't forget to do your Rose check-ins, because it will help you set the tone and the intention for the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay well, stay healthy, and stay connected. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Bye now. Thank you.
Bye.